During old school RuneScape's first few years, a player named Wilson held an iron grip on the game's rarest items. With a fortune worth $40,000 on underground markets, Wilson had a monopoly like no other, before he was mysteriously banned. What happened to Wilson's account and its fortune? I think the answer will surprise you. Our story begins in early 2013. By now, Wilson had been playing RuneScape for about 10 years. During this decade-long RuneScape career, he had not only maxed out all of his skills, but was nearing the ability to wear a trimmed completionist cape. A cape that can only be obtained by quite literally completing the entire game. Wilson was also a very accomplished merchant. For those unfamiliar, merching, also known as flipping, is the process of buying an item at a lower price and selling it for a higher price. Some flips can happen within minutes, while others involve holding on to items for weeks or even months, waiting for the right moment to sell. By buying items and flipping them for higher prices, he was able to earn enough money to purchase one of every rare item in the game, which is no small feat. By now, Wilson had accomplished just about everything you could in RuneScape, and spent most of his free time merching party hats for massive profit, but he was about to have to start over completely. In February of 2013, Jagex launched Old School RuneScape. To many players' surprise, any of the progress you made on the original version of RuneScape would not carry over to Old School. Everyone who wanted to play it had to start fresh. With a brand new economy, there was the potential to make some serious profit early on, but Wilson was already behind. He started playing the same day the game was released, but not at the exact time it launched. By the time he logged in, 50,000 other players were already online. Some had taken the approach of picking up valuable items from spawns around the world to try and make money. Others focused on leveling their skills, while most had no idea what to do. Wilson was surprisingly part of that last group. Despite his success in the original version of the game, he had no idea what he was doing, and surely didn't know that he would soon become one of the game's wealthiest and most famous players ever seen. Just as you might not know about Ultimus, he's a villain even more powerful than Thanos, and you can discover his story in Marvel Strike Force. Marvel Strike Force is a mobile squad RPG that allows you to battle with your favorite team of superheroes and supervillains in a fight to save the universe. You'll go up against threats like Doctor Doom and Apocalypse. You power up your favorite characters to complete missions, unlock gear and other resources, and take on players in PvP modes. You can play game modes like Campaigns, Arena, Blitz, Alliance War, which is a massive weekly alliance battle, Raids, and Cosmic Crucible, where you go head-to-head against other players in a tournament. Who you bring to the fight matters in this superhero game, so choose your squad wisely. If you're a new player, you can also unlock up to 17 total characters within the first 30 days, including Spider-Man, Deadpool, Thor, Captain America, and more favorites. There's over 300 characters available, with more constantly being released. And this month, there's a brand new game mode called Battle World. Battle World is an exciting new PvE mode where you can participate alongside your alliance. If you're a new or returning player, be on the lookout for awesome rewards to celebrate Battle World's launch. You can also unlock Zombie Iron Man using the limited time promo code Halloween. Celebrate the spooky season by using the promo code Halloween to receive 100 shards for Zombie Iron Man, 600k gold, and 480 L2 training modules for free. After finishing Tutorial Island, Wilson kind of just became a jack of all trades, training every skill in the game equally while giving his favorites a little extra attention. By the end of Old School's first month, he had achieved 1,337 total level, with most skills sitting at around level 50. His most notable achievement at this time was probably reaching level 65 Runecraft. With runes in high demand, he was able to earn himself a nice stack of cash to do what he was best at, merchanting. Except this time, things were different. When Old School RuneScape launched, there was no grand exchange. All trades were done the old school way, player to player. So from day one, he was on the RuneScape forums trying to make deals. And just like with the original version of RuneScape, he was very good at it. After his first month of playing, Wilson would put the Runecraft grind on hold to instead focus on Herblore. Today, Herblore is an extremely expensive skill to train. The vast majority of training methods lose you significant amounts of money. But the game was so young at the time that high-level potions were in serious demand, but very few players could actually make them. He opened up a thread on the RuneScape forums called Wilson's One-Stop Herb Shop, where he would coordinate trades of various various herblore supplies. He functioned a lot like a real NPC-run shop. He could always be found in one spot, World 338 West Farrock Bank. He would camp out here for the entirety of his second month playing Old School. Wilson shot to make at least 50,000 GP profit per trade, and actually did so very successfully. In between trades, he would train herblore, and by the end of his second month, he would achieve level 99. Throughout the next few months, it was business as usual for Wilson. He would continue to train his skills, mainly those that could be trained in or near a bank, and flip items, watching both his total level and bank value grow. That was until October of 2013, when Jagex introduced the God Wars dungeon to Old School RuneScape, an update that added a handful of new, powerful, desirable items. When it was announced, Wilson changed his strategy. He spent the month prior to the update training his combat stats and stocking up on supplies in hopes of receiving one of these items. The first few days of its release, he did nothing but kill the bosses inside the dungeon. After all the weeks of training and his dedication to the grind, he received a grand total of 0 unique drops. Along with this, he had also wasted millions in supplies. After this, he would understandably give up on bossing, and went back to his tried and true moneymaker, merching. He was disappointed, of course, but God War's release did bring a bit of a silver lining for a number of reasons. First, God Swords were introduced to the game. By buying God Sword shards, smithing them into blades, and selling them, Wilson quickly earned over 100 million gold in just a few weeks. He also tried his hand at flipping the newly released armor pieces and weapons with moderate success. Additionally, items like enchanted diamond bolts and cooked Karam wands were in high demand, items that Wilson now had the levels to produce himself. But competition for all these items that Wilson was crafting, cooking, smithing, and merching were at an all-time high. Wilson's top competitor, a player named Dimmons, would obtain most of the raw materials needed to do all of this in bulk from bot farm owners, whereas Wilson refused to do so. He didn't want to support the botting industry, so he would attempt to source all of his materials from real players. This was extremely difficult to do, and he could have made a lot more money much faster if he worked with bot farm owners, but he took the most admirable approach in my opinion. Fast forwarding a bit to about 9 months after Old School's release, Wilson's bank was now sitting at a very respectable total value of 1 billion GP. Despite the huge success he'd had so far, Wilson would soon have to change his strategy when it came to merching. Wilson had achieved level 99 in all the skills he could train at a bank, and as a result would spend much less time in one place. This made merching high volume items like skilling supplies much more difficult to do. Instead, he would shift his focus to low volume items, such as Third Age equipment. Third Age equipment can only be obtained by completing clue scrolls, and is extremely rare. At the time, they were the most expensive items in the game by far. Although their stats are only about as good as Rune, their main purpose is a lot like designer clothing, to show off wealth. Wilson would have a great deal of success merching Third Age equipment. As an example, he once purchased a Third Age wand for 200 million gold, and just 2 weeks later sold it off for 450 mil. The years of merching high value items like party hats in the original RuneScape paid off, because Wilson was very good at merching Third Age, but he would soon have to make a large change in his strategy once again. In February of 2015, the Grand Exchange was released into Old School RuneScape, a trading system where players can buy and sell just about any item in the game. Now, Wilson had about 1 billion liquid gold that he could use to start flipping here, and thought that Third Age would be the best investment of his money. As I just mentioned, Third Age was extremely rare, maybe even rarer than you're thinking. When Wilson bought and sold that wand I mentioned a few seconds ago, only 3 of them were known to exist in the game. So he poured all of his money into these items thinking that they might sell out, but he was wrong. The demand for them was lower than he expected. The items that actually did sell out were PVM items like Elysian and Arcane Spirit Shields. These items were rare, more useful to the average player than Third Age, and highly valued by stakers for gambling at the duel arena. So Wilson sold off his Third Age and began flipping Elysians with great success. He got lucky as during the first few months of the GE, Ellie's rose about 50% in price, and along the way, Wilson had grown his cash stack to an astounding 5.5 billion gold. The only people who had more money than him were dual arena stakers, and most didn't hold on to their wealth for long. With all this extra cash on hand, Wilson once again wanted to try his luck with Third Age equipment. The melee set was his favorite gear in the game, and the Third Age longsword specifically caught his interest. It's not known exactly how many longswords existed in the game at this point, but less than a dozen would be a very safe bet. Wilson would buy out any and all longswords that came into a price range that he liked. He would then try and sell them back for around 100 to 200 million GP more than he paid. Given how much cash he had and how many he could hold on to at one time, he had great success with this as well.
He's my neighbor. I get the Third Age longsword. He cannot afford. Great success.
As Wilson grew his cash stack even further, he would begin to hoard Third Age items like melee plate bodies and plate legs. And in just a few weeks, he single-handedly forced plate bodies to rise from 91 mil to 125 mil, and plate legs from 107 mil to 145. By now, he was developing a significant stranglehold on the Third Age market. All at the same time, he was still rapidly progressing his account, and just 2.5 years after starting Old School, was only 30 levels away from reaching the maximum total level with a 12.3 billion GP net worth. At this point, Wilson was just too big to fail. He had the money to manipulate the price of just about any item he wanted and had very little competition. Over the next year, it was once again business as usual. Hoard and dump high-value items, train skills while waiting for flips to complete, and get rich faster than ever before. As the months passed, Wilson was able to manipulate Third Age longsword prices so high that they were now valued above max cash, meaning they could no longer be sold on the Grand Exchange. This would lead to what was then the largest flip in Old School's history. He sold a Third Age long that he had purchased for 2 billion gold to someone else for 4 billion. By now, Wilson had hoarded the majority of Third Age longswords in the game. If you wanted one, you'd likely have to go through him, which meant you were paying whatever price he asked. Approximately 3 years after Old School's launch, Wilson had maxed his account and now had a jaw-dropping net worth of 46 billion gold. But now, Wilson had run into a new problem. Just like with the original version of RuneScape, he had more or less beaten Old School RuneScape. With not much left to do, he would stop merching and focus on other areas of the game instead. He'd begin fighting bosses again, pet hunting, and played Deadman mode on an alternate account. But perhaps the most dangerous activity he got hooked on was staking at the duel arena. Wilson began gambling billions of gold at a time here, and luck wasn't in his favor. He managed to lose a significant portion of his fortune in just a few weeks there. He would soon tweet this: "I've always been against gambling, and am disappointed with myself for compromising my morals and ever starting. I will never gamble again." I should mention that he posted this on April 1st, but I don't think he was joking. He was very disappointed, but I think he couldn't control himself as he would continue staking after this. I think that losing so much, in a way, motivated him to keep going to try and win it back. Luckily for him, he actually would, and quit staking entirely soon after. But once again, Wilson was bored. He actually wanted to take a break from the game for a while, but for some reason couldn't bring himself to do so. Instead, he would keep pet hunting, playing Deadman mode, and when the Last Man Standing minigame launched, he got hooked on that. He was even rank 1 on its high scores for a bit, but I think it's a lot like those videos that come out every time there's a new league season, where the title's like, "I'm rank 1 in RuneScape's newest league," for the 5 minutes I logged out to update the high scores and grab this screenshot. I'm not trying to throw shade at anyone, honestly, I just think it's funny. Anyway, Wilson was still bored, and in early 2017 would step away from the game to play other games like Hearthstone instead. But then, out of nowhere, Wilson's RuneScape account got banned. He would make a post on Twitter explaining that while he was on a break from the game, his account was hacked, and the hacker sold off his roughly 40 billion GP fortune. Jagex thought it was Wilson who sold the gold and then banned his account. Pretty tragic, right? Except most players didn't believe him. longtime fans claimed that Wilson was always extremely paranoid about account security, and that he must have sold the gold himself. After all, based on black market prices at the time, Wilson's fortune was worth an insane $40,000. This hack happened when he was supposedly on a break from the game too, right? After more or less completing everything it had to offer, it all seemed a little too convenient. But soon after Wilson announced his ban, Jagex unbanned him. It turns out, Wilson was telling the truth. It also seemed that getting hacked motivated him to return to the game and rebuild his account, and in the following months, he would spend a lot of time doing so, even managing to earn himself a twisted bow drop from the Chambers of Xeric before quitting again soon after. Although Wilson has since disappeared from the RuneScape community and has new hobbies like Magic the Gathering and chess, he was an incredibly influential player for his time, and what he was able to achieve was beyond impressive, and really makes me want to try merching again. Check out the video on the right, all about Elvmage. He was RuneScape's most famous PKer until Jagex caught on to the scams that he was pulling on his fans, but they messed up really badly with his punishment.